This is Hyde Street #1, a new offering from the good people at Ghost Machine. No, I don't think the hat is too much. Alright, it's probably too much. My head is shaped like a light bulb. Hats don't really work. So yeah, this is a new horror book from the folks at Ghost Machine. We have Geoff Johns as the writer, and then we have on the pencil his frequent collaborator Ivan Reis. Those two have worked together on books like Aquaman and Blackest Night over at DC. So Geoff Johns is our writer on Hyde Street here, but he's also the writer of 3 other ongoings at Ghost Machine, Redcoat, Geiger, and Rook Exodus, all of which are good to great. Hey, where was this Geoff Johns when that Justice Society ongoing was ongoing? Where's this guy been? You know, I love Geoff Johns. He's one of my favorites, but I don't know, there are other writers at Ghost Machine besides Geoff Johns, right? I mean, we have Brad Meltzer attached, we have Peter Tomasi attached. Does he have to do all the work? I'm a little bit confused as to the nature of Hyde Street, and maybe that's by design, but it seems to be like an in-between purgatory type dimension between heaven and hell. And from Hyde Street, you can either be damned to hell or sent up to heaven. You can either be saved or not saved. And we have the Mr. X character who seems to be trying to save people. And then we have this evil Boy Scout looking character who seems to be trying to damn people. The solicitation for Hyde Street #1 says that it's character-centric horror. And that is something that struck me about this book, is how well we got to know the Mr. X character, his background and part of his motivation, and it seems like that's going to continue as the book progresses. Ivan Reis, not surprisingly, does a great job here. Blackest Night showed us how good he can be on horror-type stories, so he's probably got a really high ceiling as far as what he can do in a book like Hyde Street. My big takeaway from this first issue is that there's a lot of potential for Hyde Street. This seems like just the tippy top of the iceberg, so we'll see where things go from here. The Riddler gets into the cryptocurrency game in Batman #153. You know, from a writing standpoint, I really haven't been digging the Batman ongoing series for quite a while now. But this issue 153, is definitely a step in the right direction. This is probably the best issue that our author Chip Zdarsky has given us in at least a year, probably more. But yeah, the Riddler goes straight in this story and starts a cryptocurrency business and makes himself a very rich man very quickly. And he wants a piece of Wayne Enterprises. You know, if I were the Riddler and I were trying to convince the world I wasn't evil anymore, I probably wouldn't still be wearing the green suit. I would probably just cut green out of my wardrobe altogether. There are a couple of really interesting lines in this issue, including one where the Riddler tells Batman that he got tired of trying to prove to the world that he was a genius and decided to just be a genius. A novel approach and an interesting idea. There's also a point in the issue where Batman wonders if he can ever truly make meaningful, positive change in Gotham City, because the city seemingly won't let him. The rot and the corruption run so deep. I think that thoughts like that are probably common amongst people who do heroic work, noble work, charitable work. It makes sense. From an artistic standpoint, there's also a great reveal of a character called Commander Starr, who seems to be in line with the new Gotham City Police Commissioner, Vandal Savage. Yeah, the police commissioner in Gotham City is still a man named Vandal Savage. No wonder Batman is wondering if he can ever make positive change. After months of hype and anticipation, Absolute Batman #1 is finally here. And folks, I'm here to tell you that as far as this issue is concerned, meh. So this book is the first of 3 new titles that will comprise DC's Absolute Universe, which is essentially its answer to the Ultimate Universe over at Marvel. These are different, more modernish, I guess, takes on these classic characters, and of course they can do things with them that they wouldn't do in the normal continuity because they're not beholden to that normal continuity. Our author here is Scott Snyder. And Scott Snyder being back on a Batman book is a big deal because he might be the most celebrated Batman writer of the last 15 years or so. He introduced the Court of Owls into Batman's world. That sort of leather-faced version of the Joker, that was him. He also did Batman Zero Year, but we won't hold that against him. But yeah, Absolute Batman is Scott Snyder's opportunity to present us with his unique vision of the Batman character and his universe. What we get here is something more edgy, a little bit more bloody as far as Batman and Alfred are concerned. Batman doesn't become the Punisher, but he does become more Punisher-like. And that's fine, I guess. It's just that this issue didn't grab me like I really needed it to in order to keep reading. When I talked about the DC All-In special last week, I think I actually said on camera that I would give Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, and Absolute Wonder Woman each 1 issue to impress me, to essentially justify their existence to me. And you know, as good as the art looks from Nick Dragotta and Frank Martin, and as much as I respect Scott Snyder as a writer, I'm going to take a pass on this one. Just not a unique enough spin to justify me spending an extra $5 a month on it, quite frankly. With these Absolute books, I'm looking for something different. I'm looking for something unique, like a unique kind of spin to hook me in and get me invested, and I just didn't see that with Absolute Batman #1. Hopefully we have better luck with Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman.
Oh, damn, that's a 3-eyed zebra. And oh, damn, those are giant bugs. And oh, damn, it's Geiger #7. I knew there were going to be giant bugs in this book. I mean, in a world where you can have 3-eyed zebras, why wouldn't you have giant bugs? So Geiger and Nate the Nuclear Knight now have 2 pets/animal companions. They have Barney, the 2-headed dog, who was the central character in the last issue, and then they have Zigzag, the 3-eyed zebra. At this rate, I can only assume their next animal companion will be Bunches, the elephant with 4 testicles. Don't ask them how they found out about the testicles. Gary Frank is still our cover artist here, but on interior pencils, he tags out to Paul Pelletier on this issue. I think that's how you pronounce that name, forgive me. But yeah, it's a smooth handoff. No complaints on my end. Nate the Nuclear Knight continues to be the heart of this series as far as I'm concerned. There's a long dialogue scene between he and Geiger in this issue that sort of contrasts and compares Nate's compassionate approach to Geiger's sort of cold, hard approach. And you know, it's that character dynamic between Geiger and Nate that makes this Geiger book possibly my favorite of the 4 ongoing books that Ghost Machine is publishing right now. It's beautifully written and, of course, beautifully drawn. The Phantom Zone goes cuckoo bananas in Action Comics number 1070. A 3-headed monster emerges from the Phantom Zone in this issue. The Phantom Zone, of course, being the purgatory-type other dimension where Superman sends a lot of his superpowered enemies. And apparently this monster is like 3 Phantom Zone prisoners merged together forcibly. The design is genuinely horrific. I assume it was Clayton Henry, our penciler here, that did that? In recent years, Clayton Henry has really shined as one of the great Superman artists of the modern era, in my opinion. I particularly enjoyed his work with John Kent, Superman's son. Incidentally, this is a really great Clayton Henry cover. I always like when DC does the white background thing. It inevitably makes the characters' costumes pop, and things just look and feel more iconic. Supergirl is featured heavily in this issue. Not only is she in the main story, but she's also the star of the backup feature. Skylar Patridge draws her really well. But you know, the jumpsuit costume that Supergirl is wearing right now isn't doing it for me. Am I a chauvinist if I miss the classic Supergirl costume with the skirt? I know a lot of people don't like that costume. They think it's sexist, chauvinistic, impractical, all that stuff. And you know what? I can't even necessarily deny all of that. But I have to ask, is the costume itself the problem? Or is the problem the mindset of the artists who draw the costume? Is it a situation where it's not necessarily chauvinistic and sexist unless we make it chauvinistic and sexist? Like, for instance, Melissa Benoist wore a version of the classic costume for many years on television, and that was never really played for sex appeal, right? I don't know, let me know what you think. The Terminator #1 is awesome. That's it. I mean, it's really that simple. I'm not a huge Terminator fan, like a Terminator expert or anything like that, but I have seen the first 2 movies, and as someone who enjoyed those movies, I really got a thrill out of this issue. It's got tremendous monster coming to get ya appeal. And I think that's largely because the plot of this book, much like those first 2 movies, is very simple. You have Skynet sending these Terminator robots back in time to try and kill members of the Resistance before they become who they're destined to be. My impression is that we're going to get stories set in a variety of time periods here. The art for our main feature by Luke Sparrow and colorist Colin Craker, I think is how you pronounce the name, is very strong. They make great use of the robot skeleton imagery. Lots of great variant cover game for this issue. Declan Shelby, who's also our author, does the main cover, but we've also got a variant from Alex Ross. Although I think that's an old Alex Ross piece from like the late 80s. It really does help to have the Terminator theme song playing while you read this issue. I don't even think I've read a Terminator comic prior to this one, but even I knew that. One of the next-gen Ninja Turtles finally starts to break through in, take a deep breath for the title, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin 2 ReEvolution #3. So as far as all the Last Ronin-verse stories that have been published since the original Last Ronin story came out, one of my biggest complaints, maybe my biggest complaint, is that this new team of next-gen Ninja Turtles is very bland. I mean, they look different, but they all kind of blend together. Nobody stands out, nobody pops, their personalities aren't distinct. That's a bad thing, obviously. You'd think that one of their primary goals going into this Last Ronin 2 story would be to get this new team of Ninja Turtles over with the audience so that they can keep telling more stories with these new turtles, which is obviously what they want to do. But you know, that really hasn't happened up to this point. But for me, this 3rd issue really drove home the fact that Yi, spelled Y-I, is really sort of the sensitive one amongst the new turtles. She's the most emotionally vulnerable, I guess. And you know what? I'll take that. I like that. I can remember that. You know, when Kevin Eastman, who's one of our authors here, and Peter Laird were doing the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book back in the 80s, one of the things they did to sort of differentiate between the 4 turtles was to do these micro-series issues, these one-off stories that explored the turtles as individuals. That's something that I would definitely like to see them do coming out of The Last Ronin 2. Maybe they should have done it coming into The Last Ronin 2, but it's too late now. This issue also establishes that our 4 next-gen Ninja Turtles all have different superpowers. That's fine, I guess. I mean, here's the thing. You can make them different colors, you can give them different superpowers, you can give them different jobs and hobbies and weapons, whatever. None of it matters if I don't like and remember them as individuals. That's the direction we need to go in here. From an art perspective, things are definitely on par with what we got from the first book. From a story perspective, things are fine, maybe not quite on par with what we got from the original Last Ronin, but the story's not over yet, so let's let it progress. In Wolverine number 2, Logan proves why he's the best at what he does by combating what I will call the yellow snow effect. So when we open this book, Logan is hiding from and basically stalking a bunch of soldier types in the snowy Canadian wilderness. Nothing wrong with that from a scene setup perspective. But the thing is, in the middle of the sequence, he changes into his mustard yellow Wolverine costume. All I'm gonna say is if mustard yellow is gonna be your fashion choice when you're hiding from people with guns in a snowy setting, you better be the best in the world at what you do. All joking aside here, the art here by Martin Kokolo and colorist Brian Valenza is really solid. It gives the book a really nice epic feel. The artistic highlight of this issue for me was when Wolverine has to read somebody's journal, and he finds that it's in essence in graphic novel form. It's a comic book. So what we get is sort of a black and white comic book within a color comic book. It's a really cool effect. Absolute Wonder Woman number 1 is a fantastic opening statement on Diana and her world. Maybe one of the best I've ever seen. So yeah, when I talked about Absolute Batman number 1 a couple weeks ago, I just wasn't really impressed. I said there wasn't a hook to draw me in and keep me there for future issues. A lot of people pushed back at me for that, which is fine, but yeah, that was how I felt. I wasn't into it. With Absolute Wonder Woman number 1, I pretty much had the exact opposite experience. They really hooked me with this one. This version of Wonder Woman was taken to hell as a baby, as the last of the Amazons, and raised in hell by a single mother, and we get a bunch of flashback scenes of her growing up in this book, along with a present-day sequence of her fighting a bunch of monsters near a big city. Really hot opening sequence for this issue. We've got like a floating island in the sky from which a bunch of red, demonic, pterodactyl-type creatures basically fly toward the city, and Wonder Woman has to meet them. Hayden Sherman is our penciler for this book, and he does fantastic with the demonic, hellish type imagery, along with Jordi Belair, who's our colorist. They're great consistently throughout the book, but they're really strong with the demonic stuff. There's a moment in this issue where baby Diana grabs something and throws it, and the sound effect that our letterer Becca Carey puts in there is yeet. As a wrestling fan, I couldn't help but think of Jey Uso when I saw that. There's a moment in this book where young Diana reads The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein for the first time. I didn't read that book for the first time until I was in my 30s, and it genuinely made me cry. So you know what? That struck a chord with me. Incidentally, apparently Shel Silverstein books are available in hell. Now that's what I call distribution. Really, really strong writing from Kelly Thompson in this issue, including a handful of lines from Diana's mother about what exactly it means to raise a child. Again, that really struck a chord with me as a parent. But yeah, Absolute Wonder Woman #1 knocks it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. Which means that these Absolute Universe books from DC are now 1-1 as far as I'm concerned. Your move, Absolute Superman. See you in a couple weeks. Leonardo travels to India to gather with some turtles there that eat dead bodies in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #3. So again, in this new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, the boys are all split up, they're all across the world, and the Foot Clan has started to hunt them down individually, so now they need to come back together to work against this threat. And in this issue, we find out that Leonardo has traveled to India for a reason that doesn't quite make sense to me. So apparently in India, the highly polluted Ganges River is a very popular spot to burn and dump bodies. And therefore the turtles that live in the Ganges River have kind of developed a taste for, as the issue puts it, necrotic pollution. That's a real thing, apparently. That happens. And apparently in this issue, Leonardo travels to India to be with these dead flesh-eating turtles because after more than a year of being on his own, he wants to be seen and be part of a community. But, like, it's never established that these flesh-eating turtles can communicate with Leonardo in some kind of special way. Like, there's no astral plane thing going on, there's no telepathy, nothing. And, like, obviously a regular turtle's brain operates on a different level than a mutant turtle's brain. So, without that otherworldly element, this whole situation with Leonardo and the turtles from India feels kind of silly and mildly creepy. Like it would be the equivalent of me going to a group of toddlers for life advice. This feels like the first draft of a good idea. I like that we're incorporating these real-world flesh-eating turtles into the story. I mean, that's cool, but it feels like this is a situation where we could have used a little bit of extra creative license here. We could have dipped into the comic book fantasy world a little bit more, just to establish more of a connection between Leo and these regular turtles. Still, Cliff Chiang does our art here and our colors. I don't know if he's ever worked on the Turtles before, but boy, he's welcome back anytime as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this looks great. The variant cover game is once again very strong for this issue. TMNT co-creator Kevin Eastman turns in a really strong one, and this is Lee Bermeo's take on Leonardo. You know what I realized with this issue? IDW didn't change up the masthead at all when they relaunched TMNT a couple months ago. It pretty much looks exactly the same. I mean, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but it kind of feels like a missed opportunity. All in all, these first 3 issues of the relaunched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series have indeed been a little bit more exciting and interesting than what we were getting before the relaunch, but nevertheless, it is a mixed bag.